She was only a child, yet the world had already turned its back on her. Locked away in silence, her cries of, "I can't take it anymore," echoed through a house that refused to listen. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because of the color of her skin. The cruelty she faced wasn't just from strangers, it lived under her own roof. And just when it seemed no one would ever step in, the sound of a door opening changed everything. But who walked in and what happened next would expose a truth far bigger than one little girl's pain.
By day, she was just another little girl, quiet, curious, and full of dreams, too big for the small world around her. She loved drawing on scraps of paper, humming songs only she knew, and watching other children run free in the yard. But her own life was different. Behind closed doors, kindness was scarce. Her stepmother's glare followed her every move, turning even simple mistakes into punishments. Meals were often withheld, laughter was forbidden, and whispers of her not belonging lingered like shadows. To the outside world, it looked like a normal home, but inside, the walls carried secrets. Secrets built on cruelty, fueled by prejudice. And though the little girl tried to stay strong, cracks were forming. Each day her voice grew smaller, her spirit dimmer, until the night she finally whispered words no child should ever say, "I can't take it anymore." What she didn't know was that this cry, barely above a whisper, was about to echo louder than she could ever imagine.
Days blurred into nights, and the little girl's world grew colder. The punishments became harsher, the silence heavier. When other children laughed at school, she stayed quiet, her eyes fixed on the ground. Teachers noticed her shrinking frame, but dismissed it as shyness. Neighbors heard her muffled cries, but told themselves it was none of their business. The truth was too uncomfortable to face. Inside her home, cruelty had a rhythm. Meals skipped for no reason, chores piled higher than her small hands could manage, and always the sharp reminder from her stepmother that her skin made her less, that she should be grateful for scraps, that she would never belong. Words meant to break her spirit, repeated until they carved wounds deeper than any bruise. She tried to endure, whispering prayers into her pillow, clinging to the faint hope that someone, anyone, would see her pain. But the world around her was blind. One stormy evening, the tension snapped. Rain battered the windows while she crouched in a corner, her body trembling with hunger and exhaustion. When she accidentally spilled water on the floor, her stepmother's fury erupted. The little girl was shoved outside into the cold, her cries drowned by thunder. Neighbors peered through curtains but closed them just as quickly. A child, shivering and sobbing in the storm, yet no one came. She screamed into the night, "I can't take it anymore." The sound carried through the rain, raw and desperate, as if the heavens themselves had to bear witness. And then, silence. The door slammed shut behind her. She was alone, the storm swallowing her small figure. But at that very moment, headlights cut through the darkness. A black car slowed to a stop, its engine humming low. The little girl froze, unsure if this was salvation or another danger waiting to unfold.
The car door opened, and out stepped a man whose presence seemed to silence the storm itself. He was tall, composed, dressed in a suit that didn't belong in a neighborhood like this. The millionaire had come home, but what he found stopped him cold. A child, drenched, shivering, her eyes wide with fear, stood abandoned on his doorstep. For a moment he could hardly believe what he was seeing. Then the door behind her cracked open. The stepmother's voice rang out, sharp and venomous, dripping with the same poison the girl had endured for years. "She doesn't belong here," she sneered, trying to mask her cruelty as discipline. The words cut deeper than any slap, each syllable a reminder of the prejudice that had stolen this child's innocence. The millionaire's face darkened. He had built his fortune on power, on commanding respect in boardrooms and across cities, but never had he felt rage like this. The air thickened as his voice thundered through the house, shaking the very walls. "Enough!" It wasn't just anger. It was truth breaking chains. It was justice demanding to be heard. The stepmother faltered, but the damage was done. Years of neglect, fueled by hatred, stood exposed in a single moment. The little girl clung to the shadows, torn between hope and disbelief, her body trembling as though afraid even kindness might vanish. For her, this was not just a confrontation. It was survival. And then, as lightning lit the sky, the millionaire turned, not just to the stepmother, but to every silent witness who had ever looked away. His words hung heavy, impossible to ignore. This was no longer just about one child. It was about a world where cruelty could hide behind closed doors, where racism could strip even a child of her worth. The storm outside raged on, but inside, a reckoning had begun. That night ended differently than anyone expected. The little girl was no longer invisible. For the first time, someone with power stood in front of her, not to silence her cries, but to amplify them. The millionaire made sure she was safe, fed, and cared for. He demanded accountability from those who had failed her, and his voice carried further than hers ever could. But even as warmth returned to her world, the scars of what she endured would never fully fade. Because her story wasn't just about one cruel stepmother. It was about neighbors who stayed silent, teachers who ignored the warning signs, and a system that allowed prejudice to masquerade as discipline. It was about a society where a child could be punished for the color of her skin, and no one dared to intervene until wealth and influence walked through the door. And that truth should haunt us. How many more children cry into the night unheard? How many more voices are dismissed simply because of the bodies they were born into? The little girl's life changed, yes, but not because the world became kinder. It changed because someone finally chose to listen. That choice should not be rare. It should not depend on power or money or status. Her story is a reminder. Silence makes us complicit, and looking away only strengthens injustice. So ask yourself, when the next cry for help echoes in the dark, will we close the curtain, or will we be the ones who step in before it's too late?